Most people think procrastination begins when you avoid the task, when you open another tab, when you check your phone, when you delay what you said you would do, when you tell yourself you'll start later. But procrastination usually starts before any of that happens. It starts in the moment your mind senses what beginning will cost. Not the time, not the effort, not the task itself, the internal pressure. That small shift happens fast. You look at what needs to be done, and something inside you tightens, not dramatically, just enough to make starting feel heavier than it should. So, you pause. You think for a second. You reorganize something. You check something quickly. You wait for the right mood. You tell yourself you're not ready yet. And from the outside, it looks like laziness. But internally, something more subtle is happening. Your mind is moving away from discomfort. That's why procrastination can feel so confusing, because many times you actually care about the thing you're avoiding. You want to do it. You know it matters. You may even think about it constantly, and yet you still don't begin. Not because the task has no value, but because it has too much weight. This is where procrastination is often misunderstood. It is not always a lack of motivation. Sometimes it is the nervous system responding to pressure before you consciously know what you're reacting to. The task becomes more than a task. It becomes a place where you might fail, where you might disappoint yourself, where you might realize you are not as ready as you hoped, where you might have to face how far behind you feel. And once the task carries that kind of meaning, starting no longer feels neutral. It feels exposed. This is especially common for people who overthink, because the mind doesn't just see the action. It sees everything around the action, the pressure, the possible failure, the energy it might take, the result that may not be good enough, the fear of proving to yourself that you still can't follow through. So before you even start, your mind has already created pressure. And when pressure appears, avoidance starts to feel like relief. Not real relief, temporary relief. The kind that makes you feel better for a few minutes, but leaves the problem waiting in the background. And this is how the pattern gets stronger. Your brain begins to learn. Starting equals pressure. Avoiding equals relief. And eventually your mind stops seeing the task as work and starts seeing it as threat. That is why the reaction becomes so automatic. You don't always decide to avoid. You drift into avoidance. You move away from the task almost before you notice you are doing it. And then guilt appears. You tell yourself you should have started sooner. You feel behind. The task becomes bigger. The pressure increases, and now starting feels even harder than it did before. So the mind delays again. This is why procrastination can become so painful. Not because of one unfinished task, but because of what repeated avoidance does to your relationship with yourself. You start questioning your discipline, your consistency, your ability to trust your own decisions. You may begin to think, why do I keep doing this? Why can't I just start? Why do I avoid things I actually care about? But the real question is deeper. What does starting make you feel? Because procrastination often begins there, not with the phone, not with the distraction, not with the delay, but with the emotional state your mind is trying not to enter. That is why pushing harder doesn't always solve it. More pressure can make the task feel heavier. More shame can make the avoidance stronger. More self-criticism can teach your mind that beginning is even more dangerous. The solution does not begin with attacking yourself. It begins with noticing the exact moment the resistance appears. The moment before you escape. The moment before you distract yourself. The moment before you say, "I'll do it later." That moment matters because that is where procrastination starts. Not where it becomes visible, where it begins. And once you can see that moment clearly, you stop asking, "Why am I so lazy?" And you start asking something more honest. What is my mind trying to avoid feeling right now? That question changes everything. Because procrastination is not always a problem of time. Sometimes it is a problem of emotional association. Your mind has learned that starting means pressure. And until that association is noticed, the same pattern keeps repeating. So the next time you avoid something important, don't only look at the distraction. Look at the tension that appears before the escape. That is where the pattern begins. And that is where clarity starts. If this video made you recognize something in yourself, subscribe to Quiet Clarity. This channel is for people who want to understand the hidden psychological patterns behind the behaviors they keep repeating. And if you recognize this pattern in your own life, leave a comment below. Your comment helps other people realize they are not the only ones experiencing this. And if this video gave you clarity, leave a like. It helps this channel reach more people who are trying to understand their mind instead of just blaming themselves.